Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. I know some of you came for points, but that's okay. We're still happy that you're here. Whatever it takes to get people here. This is an Honors in Action presentation that Phi Theta Kappa is presenting tonight. Every year we do an Honors in Action project, and this year we have chosen to focus on how texting and tweeting have altered the spoken and written language. And so that's why you'll see through the theme through our questions tonight, we'll be talking about how technology has impacted communication. And I think that this is going to be very important for students because we want to make sure that we obviously get good grades in our classes, right? So we can communicate well to get good grades, but also as you transition into the professional world, you certainly want to be sure that you're using proper communication skills there as well. We have 4 excellent panelists with us tonight, so we're very thankful that they have chosen to give their time this evening. We have Dr. Brandy Fair, who is a speech professor here at Grayson. Dr. Melinda McBee is an English professor, also here at Grayson. Dr. Donna Kumler, a history professor, also here at Grayson. And then we have Mrs. April Patterson, who's the Director of Communications at Sherman ISD. This week is also Founders Week for Phi Theta Kappa. November 19th is our Founders Day, and we celebrate this usually by having some type of event, so it was nice that we could couple this event with our Founders Week and celebrate Phi Theta Kappa, which is the honor society of the 2-year college. And so a lot of our students here tonight are Phi Theta Kappa members and Phi Theta Kappa officers, including our moderator this evening, Mr. Rob Chakowski, who is our first vice president.
Thank you. Alright, I want to thank you again for coming here today. Greatly appreciate your assistance. Alright, my first question goes out to the entire panel. It is, how do language shortcuts such as text lingo influence an individual's language skills, both spoken and written?
Alright, well I guess I'm the one to start it off. There are definitely pros and cons to how texting and tweeting has impacted our language. The pros, you guys know. If you need to send a quick response to somebody, you can avoid the phone call. You don't have to call them. You can send them a 2 or 3 word or 2 or 3 letter response, and they know what it is that you're talking about. You don't have to get on the phone, explain what you mean, this is what's going on, here's what you need to do. You can dodge that, which is nice. I'm a fan of that. If I can avoid a phone call and get back to work, that's even better for me. I see there's a pro and con in your note-taking in your classes too. If you know what the abbreviations mean and you can refer back to your notes and understand it, that's even better. So you can get through those notes a lot faster and get back to focusing on what your professors are saying instead of having to write every single word, every single letter that's on the slide or coming out of our mouths. Unfortunately, there are some major negatives. Just because it's good, it's quick, it's fast, it's good for your note-taking doesn't mean that's how you respond to an email to any of your instructors. Because first off, we might not know what your letters stand for. We were going through, and some of the people were looking at that WDYM going, I don't know what those letters stand for. It's the, what do you mean? Ironically enough. So you got to be careful about who this message is going to. A, are they going to be able to understand it? B, is it appropriate for the situation? Are you writing a professional paper? Are you working on an outline? Are you emailing your boss back about missing work? You've got to keep in mind who's receiving that message, and are they going to understand what it is that you're talking about? So that's the pros and cons that I see as far as texting and all that is concerned with our language.
So I would have to just kind of bounce off that a little bit. As an English instructor, of course, language is very important to me. Not that it wouldn't be to you too. And,
Not in history.
oh, not in history.
That's what it says here.
Yeah, history has nothing to do with having to write or do anything of that sort.
No.
What I see happen is there's that students have problems with kind of an informality that happens as a result of texting. I think texting is great if it works. It's a good shortcut. It does save a lot of time, as you mentioned, but sometimes assessing a situation, realizing who your audience may be, shifting that register, that's hard enough anyway, just across the board, but when texting comes into place with that, when texting comes across in emails or even in conversation or in papers sometimes that I get where there's this text lingo in there, it's like, no, we're doing standard, English here, we need to focus on those skills. So what I see happening, and this may or may not be related to texting, and maybe other things involved as well, is that there's kind of this informal written response that happens. It just kind of comes from students without this sense of an academic community or how you shift and move into that academic writing because this other is influencing that. And again, it may not just be that, there are other things that are involved as well. Even in communication, I think just the oral communication, there's some of this informality that sometimes is not the best approach. And I find myself a lot of times going back and forth with students when if we could just get straight to the gist of what the question is, there wouldn't be all this back and forth for about 5 or 10 emails trying to determine what exactly does that question mean, the student not understanding how I'm responding, I'm not understanding the student, when maybe if we had just spoken to each other, this could have, come together a little more quickly. And so to me, that's the frustrating thing, the amount of time that I'm spending trying to give the right information to a student when maybe I'm not even understanding exactly what the student's asking me and the student's not understanding my response.
TTYL. Some of you may have seen a cartoon in the newspaper on Sunday, and there was an old grandmother at a computer, and she's sending a message, an email message to one of her friends, and this friend's dog had died, and the friend is talking about how distraught she is and everything, and so the grandmother's trying to be in the moment and in the times and up with the times, and so she ends her message by LOL. And she thought it meant lots of love. Now, the point to that is, when you're communicating, whether you're communicating in writing or verbally, you have to make sure you're sending the right messages. You have to make sure you're saying what you mean to say. And this is the biggest problem I see as far as my unlanguaged field is concerned. And that is that students clearly mean, I know they mean a certain thing, but it doesn't come across in actually what they're writing there. And I think technology has contributed to that greatly. And something just to think about, because historians always have to put things in context. We can't help it. We have to create a big picture and put something in it. So if you look at our society, and I'm obviously the oldest one up here by far, I've been involved in teaching since 1972 in high school, and in college, at a community college, and at 2 universities. And what I have seen happen in the last 5 to 10 years because of technology is that I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, the vulgarity and the lack of concept of what is proper and appropriate in any given setting, and then technology fed that, or did technology start that and we're going to have to take some steps backwards and work out some things there. So I'm not sure it's a chicken or the egg thing, and I don't know which is which, but if somehow we can convince you as students that it's okay sometimes to write a paper that uses the personal I or you or whatever, sometimes it's not appropriate to do that. When you have formal writing, you don't call John Hancock John, for example, in your writing. But if we can somehow communicate to you, and if you can learn that there is an appropriate way to communicate, and that's a multi-level kind of thing, in your life as a student. And some of these other questions, we'll get to that in a moment, regarding professional writing and academic writing, and we'll talk more about that later.
I definitely agree with everything that they've all said. I just want to add one thing, that what I see, the key word to me in this question is language shortcuts. And I think anytime you're communicating with someone, whether that's in the real world, your personal or professional life, if you assume what you're saying if you assume that someone else understands what you're saying by using those shortcuts, you've already taken a step back in your communication efforts. You can't ever, and that's what those shortcuts do. So I'm certainly technologically inclined. I love texting. I'm a big person on tasking and saving time. So I just, as they said, you have to know your audience and be absolutely sure that they understand what you're saying, whether that's in texting or whether that's writing a paper or whether that's after you graduate and you're talking to someone, either speaking to them or writing something. Don't ever assume that someone understands what you're saying.